Hey there, gorgeous. Welcome to Trusting Divinity. Welcome to learning and growing together in grace. Thank you for stepping boldly and bravely into the truth that all things are working together for your good. Trusting divine timing and giving me lots of grace in my own messy human experience. What I have learned this week is that maybe I should not give you a preview about the next week's episode, because here at Trusting Divinity, God has been at work rearranging all sorts of things. Yes, there will be an upcoming episode all about embracing the flow of the divine feminine. But for today's episode, God had other plans. And from what I can tell, God needs someone to know that they are not forgotten. God needs someone to know that He is most definitely in the details. Whether you recognize that you are that someone or not, I am certain that this episode will offer hope to any heart that may be hurting. And if your heart isn't hurting currently, may you simply stand in awe at the goodness of God as you listen to these stories. I am so excited about today's interview and excited to introduce you to another beautiful soul. Faun, Jackson, and I are discussing her incredible gift of co-creating with God through photography. I actually met Faun through a post that popped up on my Facebook feed. Her post was such a beautiful testament of God being in the details of our lives, especially in the messy middle, orchestrating things that we could never do on our own. Another example of the perfection of God's grace. Well, that day that post popped up, I felt compelled to not only share her post, but also to reach out to her to see if she would share her story live here on the Trusting Divinity podcast. Today, I am going to let her share that story with you. But before we get started, I would love to introduce you. Faun loves the color green, Thai food, and all things sushi. She is a lover of books and all things art, and recently retired from 20 years of working at the library. Her photography journey began years ago when she decided to create her own school pictures for her kids. Others naturally fell in love with her work, and it has simply grown from there. Fawn lives in the small town of Lyman, Utah, which just happens to be perfectly located between the two incredible landscapes of Fish Lake and Capitol Reef, both perfect backdrops for doing what she loves. She especially enjoys composite photography, the combining of two or more different images to create a new one, and has used her gifts to bless so many lives. Fawn has a gift to simply see the beauty of God in each of his children. She feels called to and especially loves helping teenagers see their beauty, value, and worth. Well, Fawn, thank you so much for joining me today. My heart is so grateful that you were willing to come and share these stories to bear witness of the goodness of God. It's obviously that you have seen it again and again throughout your life.
Yes, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, Fawn and I actually chatted a little bit yesterday, did a little get to know you, and I had some questions that came to my mind that I wanted to ask her. And I'm going to present them at the beginning of our episode, but then I want you to just hear her answers as she shares these incredible stories and these experiences that she has had through her co-creative process of photography. She is literally co-creating with God. So that was probably one of the things that impressed me the most yesterday as we talked was your ability to co-create, to allow God to be in the details and to let him lead and guide you. And I think that we'll find the answers as you just share the stories about how you cultivated this gift in your life. And I think sometimes gifts are being cultivated and we don't even recognize it consciously. And so maybe you haven't yet seen that this is such an incredible gift that you have, but obviously from the outside looking in, we can see this gift. Um,
Yeah.
and then if it comes up throughout the way, like if you have any advice about how to deepen that ability to co-create and that creative process, feel free to share tidbits along the way, but no pressure whatsoever. And then obviously here at Trusting Divinity, I am always seeking to point people back to how do we bring Jesus Christ into our everyday lives? And I think that you do such a beautiful job of that. He is there to strengthen us and enable us. Um, Constantly his grace is being poured out upon us. And I just think that these stories show so beautifully how that is happening in your life and in the lives of people that you have been able to bless and touch. So just as you're listening today, listen for those threads throughout this interview. But let's just dive in. I told everybody how we originally met was through your Facebook post popping up about this incredible, beautiful story. Don't worry, I haven't told them the story yet because it's yours to share. But I just would love to dive into that story. Do you want me to throw up the first picture?
Sure. So it
Okay.
started a few years ago when I photographed this family a few times, and they had these darling little boys in their suits. And I had this thought to put them from oldest to youngest and have them walk. So this is the picture that we were able to capture at that time. So fast forward a few years, and I was taking their pictures again this past fall, and I had the thought to do it again. So they had added another little dude to the group, and so I got this picture, and then um, I sent them all off to them to pick which ones they wanted. And in the gallery that I send to my clients, they're allowed to get in and write little notes of maybe some things they would like me to do. And the mom had gotten in and said, "Could you move my littlest back closer to his brothers?" And for anybody that knows me, I am a people pleaser. And so I totally try really hard to do everything that my clients ask me to do. But for some reason, well, now I know why, I just didn't do it. I mean, that is so not like me, but I just didn't do it. I didn't move him. And I posted a folder of their pictures on my Facebook page. And about a few weeks went by, and the dad of this group called me. He works at the hospital, and one of the nurses had come up to him and asked him if I had done that on purpose, left that space, because they had actually lost their only little girl in between those two boys. And so they asked him, did she do that on purpose? Which is kind of funny when you think about it. I mean, can you imagine me saying, "All right, little toddler, run ahead"? I mean, there's just no way that I could have done that, even if I'd have thought to do that. So anyway, he said, and then they told me, because he didn't know that I love Photoshop, and he said they told him, well, she could put a little girl in there in a white dress. And he said, could you do that? And in my mind, I thought, well, it'd have to be in between their ages, and I'm like, I said, geez, if, I could, if I had a picture of a little girl in a white dress going sideways, walking. And as we talked, all of a sudden in my mind, I remembered taking pictures of this darling little 8-year-old blonde girl that in a few months prior in the summer, actually probably in the spring. And that's her. And obviously, all of the boys are brunette, and the mom and dad are brunette. And so I had this little girl that's blonde. And so I thought, well, I told him, I said, let me try. So I pulled that picture and the picture, those two pictures in, and yeah, and got to work. And so at first I had to remove the bow in her hair, and then I needed to make her hair brunette. I did that. And I got rid of her shoes. I pushed her knee in so that it didn't look like she was running quite so hard. And then I brought in some pretty heavenly lights in there. And I kept looking at this picture, her, and I thought, I really could go in and make her nose look like her brother's. So I went in and I made her nose look like her brother's. She looks like part of the family. And as I was working, I thought, is this my work? So I pulled, after all of that work, I pulled her into the final photo, and it was going to work. And I just couldn't believe it. So I brought in all of this light. But the thing that was the most astonishing about this whole thing to me was that the light source, if you notice, was right above that space. So as I brought her in, the light was right above her naturally. Can you see that light right there above her?
Yeah,
So I
right
guess
above the tree, like in the trees, right?
about,
It, above
yeah,
that
right above
empty
that
space.
space. Yes, above that empty space. So I did it a few different ways and took it over on my phone because he didn't want his wife to find out, because it was for a Christmas gift. And I showed him, and he picked one that the sunshine was very prominent. And that in and itself is another little miracle. So when I finished, I guess you can show the finished product.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, ta-da! When she opened up her gift, and it was a great big, I printed a great big one. She first noticed the little girl, obviously, and then she saw that bright sunshine. And she said that even her husband didn't know that when she held Stella, I don't know if she had just passed or right before she passed, but she's saying, "You are my sunshine." I'm gonna bawl, but sorry. And so the fact that her husband picked that prominent sun was very tender to her and to me. Another just little miracle. And another thing I loved about this photo is that it shows this little boy looking down at her hand. Her hand is just within reach, and it just looks like he's just going to grab that. And it's my firm belief that one day he will be able to hold that little hand, and they'll all be together. And this mom had been really struggling, and I just feel like this is a really sweet little love letter, love note, or whatever, to this sweet mama that had her heart broken and was still struggling, that he is aware of her. Because honestly, there's no way on earth that I could plan that, even if I had thought of that, to get that little boy, to get the light where it is. I mean, the spacing, it's all just a little miracle to me. So there's your story.
Absolutely. Oh, what a good, delicious story. So you all can see why when this popped up on my feed, I was like entranced. And I just love the details. I love all the little things that came together. And I am a believer that God gives us everything we need, moment by moment. Like we have what we need. And so I love that through this story, it's not like it's not like this idea was born and then you had to go out and make all the pieces. All the pieces were
Right.
already there. And dad said, "Hey, do you think you could pull this off?" And God was like, "Hey, remember you have that picture of the little girl." And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious, how old was Stella when she passed? Do you know?
She was a newborn.
Oh, okay. So did
Yeah.
you know when you photographed the boys that they had lost their girl?
I had heard, but I had kind of forgotten. They don't live where I live, but I had heard that she had had a little girl. But yeah, it wasn't in the forefront of my mind. And
Right.
even when I did the picture, I'm sure I was like, "Oh yeah, they lost a little girl," but it didn't like occur to me that that space was there for her. And he is in the details. He's in the details, because there's just no way this could have come about without him wanting to give this message to her sweet mama, and help her
Yeah,
through a hard times that she still has. Everyone, I can't even imagine losing a child. So yeah, anyway.
absolutely. I just think I'm like thinking even of the nurse in the hospital, right? Like she
Oh,
got to
I
play
know.
a role. Like she got to, I don't know
Yeah.
what they were in the hospital for, but like that conversation that even happened for
Yeah. Oh,
dad to even know that it was a possibility, right?
Yeah, he works there too. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
he's an anesthesiologist, and so this nurse was, I guess, and it's funny because I've had some of the nurses come and say, "Oh, I was there when we were all discussing and telling him that you could do something. We just knew you could." And I'm like, "But that's putting a lot of like, because you would have to have a little girl, right?" And the fact that I had one is such a miracle, really. It just, and that it worked
Yeah.
out. Yeah, she
Yeah.
looked proud of their
We
son.
never, I think sometimes we forget, right? That just even in our everyday interactions, like those nurses weren't doing anything extraordinary, right? She just
Right,
went to work. She was just doing her life. Like
right,
she was just living life. And God was like, hey, like he uses all of us, right?
yeah,
He just
yeah,
plants little ideas or says, say this to this person. And then, like you
yeah.
said, this grandiose miracle. Like I can only imagine opening that treasure on Christmas Day and receiving that love note from God, right?
Yeah, it was tender. He sent me a video and I just bawled watching it. It was very sweet. And it was so cute because one by one, she's the sweetest, the most sweet. Oh, she's the sweetest, the mom. Anyway, it was just so tender. She one by one went and hugged each boy and thanked him. I thought it was really sweet. I had taken this huge picture over and left it at my in-laws that live in the same town. And he'd left it there until he could get all his boys to go over right before Christmas, like right before. And he explained to them that that was what it was. And they felt a big part of it and they wrapped it and they were so excited. And the little boy that's 8, he's videoing it for me. And he's like, I knew she'd cry. I told everybody you'd cry. It was so cute. That like they were so excited to give it to her. And I tell you, I told him, I'm like, I don't really, that was the most important present to me this year. And it wasn't even to me, but it was just something that I just was so excited about. Yeah.
So that was
Anyway,
just this Christmas.
this was this Christmas. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, how fun.
It's
Ah,
still really tender. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I don't know, as I listened to that story and now I've heard even more details, um, it's so apparent to me just how big God loves his children,
Yeah.
and that he
Yeah.
will go to the ends of the earth to create miraculous moments, right? Even in
Yeah.
our grief. Like, here is a mother who is grieving the loss of her sweet little princess.
Yeah.
Um, and I can only imagine that for her, it feels like God moved mountains to send that love note.
Yeah. I loved it. It was great to be a part of something like that for sure.
Yeah. Well, after talking to you a little bit, I realized that this is not a one and only story for you, but that you have
Um,
had many experiences similar to this and been an instrument in helping people stay connected to those who are beyond the veil, or even your next story is so cute about this sweet little boy, and I'm just going to let you dive in and share it as well. But just I just think you've had such incredible experiences and watched God orchestrate the details again and again and again.
And I love that you say it that way because I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, that's lucky. Oh, that's you're so lucky that that worked out, you know, or that they looked that way or that they did that." But I just I don't believe in luck. I believe that he has a hand in so much of what I do. I really do. When I pray, when it's a tender situation, and I've had my share of those, then I always, you know, say a prayer before I leave. And I'm a simple, but I know that he listens and I know, and I really do. I just pray and then I go and then things work out when he's involved in what I'm doing, right? When I ask,
Yeah,
he's like, good to be there for me. I really believe
yeah,
that. Yeah. So anyway, this little boy Bridger, he was born
yeah.
and I wish I had what it is he has. that I could tell you. But yeah, he can mostly can't see and he mostly can't hear. And okay, yeah, this is him. But let me tell you how hard this picture was to get. So he can't really see and he can't really hear, barely. Um, anyway, he was only supposed to live, I think, 2 to 3 years. And if I'm thinking correctly. And he had lived to 5. And so she called and she said, I'd like to do something special with my boy. He made it to 5, which is really a big deal. And I was like, well, hey, let's do something superhero-ish, and she's like, great. So she went and bought all the capes and I found a spot that we could go. But let me tell you, this picture is so miraculous. It really is, because she had to hold, she held a toy kind of close to him and raised it. And as he, we did it a few times and his arm raised. So I got the picture of his arm up. Then she threw the cape and I got that. The wind was blowing the cape, so that was perfect. But right at the last minute, just a split second, that little boy smiled like that. So I was able to put those 3 pictures together to get this picture, which looks like he is just one normal, cute little boy playing superheroes, which is so sweet. Really is a miracle if you could see the befores and then the one that I was able to finalize for his sweet mom. It was pretty miraculous. And then he lived another 3 years. He's still alive. He's so cute. And I was telling you how you just feel heaven when he's around. His name's Bridger, and he is heaven. He's equivalent of heaven, really. And so he turned 8, and she said, I know he doesn't need to be baptized, but I want to do pictures of him. What do you think? And I said, oh, you should get him a white suit. And so she did. And she brought him over to my studio. And so this first picture, I guess you're going to move. He just looked up and was just smiling. And I don't know if you can tell that because I just lightly put Christ up there. But it just symbolizes that, like, really, when he's around, you just feel this heavenly feeling. You really do. And then the next picture I did of him, I had his brother run and get the shadow of his brother to just point out that, he will be made whole and he will be running one day. And I just thought it turned out really sweet. And then the next picture, this one is super tender too. His grandpa was really young. He passed actually just months after this little boy was born. And their family really believes, and I do too, that he was meant to go so that he could be there for him in that way, in that heavenly way, and be there for Bridger. And when we were at the studio, he just kept looking straight ahead and pointing. And I just loved the thought that his grandpa is there. And I love that quote too by Elder Holland. Don't underestimate your family on the other side of the veil. I just believe that they're there for us when we need help. So I love that one.
Absolutely. Yes. What a
The next
precious.
one. And then my favorite song, one of my favorite primary songs, is I'll Walk With You. And so I had his mom walk, and then I put them inside the book and had him hold the book, which is
Oh
the
yeah,
next
that's
one.
fun. Yeah.
Anyway, it's pretty sweet. Bridger is super special, and so is his sweet mom. She's a one of a kind. So there's that story.
Whoops. Preview.
Preview. Yeah, I guess, should I share the one that I have a story that I could not for the life of me find the pictures, but
Yeah.
this is what happened. I was editing one day and I knew of this family in the town next to my town that had a little boy that was expected to only live for a month. That's what they gave her. And they had just gotten home. And the thought came to me, you should go take pictures of this family. And I thought, well, I don't don't really need to because they had the baby up north and she had told me her photographer lived up north. So I just in my head went, I'm sure they got pictures. They were up there where her photographer was, right? So I just kind of dismissed it and I kept editing. And I tell you, it was probably 2 or 3 times just really, you should go take pictures of that family. I just would not leave my mind. I just kept thinking of that. And so finally, I text a friend that lived in that town. I'm like, by chance, do you have her number? And she did. And so I text her and I said, hey, this is Faun Jackson. I would be so happy to come over and take some pictures of your family for free if you would like me to. And she texts back and said, I would love that. We don't have any. I would love that so much. When were you thinking? And I said, how about right now? I'll just drop everything. I felt just this urgency to get it done. I mean, because it'd been bugging me all day, like I need to do this. So I said, I'll drop everything. I'll bring my camera and we'll just do it right now. And she said, well, give me an hour and I'll get the kids ready. So in an hour, I went over and I wish I had the pictures because they turned out so just lovely. That this was their fifth kid, I think, fourth or fifth, I think fifth. Anyway, so all of the kids and the little boy, the baby, and I mean, I did one of everything, and came home, and I don't know, just the spirit in the home was just very heavenly as well, just really strong, and I cried all the way home. Anyway, I came home and I edited them. I quit everything and I just did that and got them done for her. And the very next morning, a friend of mine from that town texted me, and when I got the number from, and she said, I am so grateful you went over. He passed in the night. And in my mind, I just couldn't believe it because I thought, I thought they had given him a month. I think they did. And he passed that night. So I just kept thinking, what if I hadn't listened? Because there are times that I have not listened. But what if I hadn't listened? That would have been a pretty big hurt. That would have hurt my heart. Really, that would have been terrible. So anyway, so that's sweet. I wish I had the pictures because they really were so pretty. But yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I could tell you, is there just one more story I was going to share? I have so
Well,
many.
let me just ask you a couple of questions because I love what you're talking about here. And I think that this is what I'm talking about the co-creative process. I feel like you are so in tune with heaven, right?
I don't know what I am.
Well,
but I am. I don't know.
I think you are more in tune than maybe you think you are. But I also think that we're all human, right? And being human is divine. And I love that you talked about that you have had experiences where you have listened and you've had experiences where you haven't listened. I think yesterday we were talking about an experience where you felt very prompted to take your camera and you ended up not taking your camera and then you really needed it.
Yeah.
But what did God do for you in that instance?
Yeah,
because it all worked out.
It did work out. But then I was like, would have been better if I'd had my camera. You know how you get it.
Yeah, but I think that this is where grace comes into play, right? And I think that heaven spoke loud and clear to you that, like, you didn't listen the first time, right? That the prompting came.
No,
You thought they already have pictures.
They already did
and
it.
why? I'm editing and right, like, not that you were trying to like wipe off that spirit, but heaven knew how urgent it was and made it clear to you that it was urgent.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And so I think that this is where I love grace, because in our weakness, Christ's strength shows up. And because we sometimes think, oh, well, yeah, maybe that's a fun idea, or why would I do that, or whatever, when those promptings come, right?
Yeah.
His strength comes back in and the spirit comes again and says, no, I really need you to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I am definitely willing. I just need to be shoved a little harder sometimes.
Yeah, but I also love, I mean, right, and each, you can't compare one circumstance to another, because in this one, if you had waited or you didn't take your camera or whatever, right, the baby potentially would have passed and the moment would have been missed. But in the other one, I love that, yes, you felt the prompting to take your camera. Yes, you heard the call. And then you thought, what in the world? I do not need my camera. I am not going to take pictures. That's not the purpose of this event in my life, right?
Yeah, right.
And then God presented the opportunity for you to use your gifts and talents. And you're like, I should have brought my camera. But then, like, everything fell into place for there to be a camera there for you to use when you needed it. And this is what I love about God, that even in our weakness and even in our moments of not listening, he still makes a way. Like, he is the way maker, right?
Right. Yes,
And he
absolutely.
makes a way for his work to be accomplished and for his children to know
Yeah.
him.
Yeah. That
So
they're not forgotten. I feel like most of the things that I think when this happens is I just think he wants them to know he's aware of them. You know, it's not about me. It's about my clients and about him knowing who they are, like I think I told you about one a handicapped girl, and the mom said, don't worry, you're not going to get a good picture. And I laid in the dirt, had him hold her, moved around till the light came. In the middle of the night, I couldn't sleep. The picture was beautiful, but there was this empty space I wanted to do something. I searched the internet. I finally got smart and said a prayer, and in my mind came the song, I believe there are angels among us. And I put that, and it turns out through a tearful and encounter with his mom, with her mom. She said that, how did you know that's our song for Chrissy? So I think that one just shows so profoundly how he not only knows her mom, he knows the favorite song for Chrissy. That was her song. And that is such a little detail that he knows. And that's just such a miracle to me that he knows a favorite song. I mean, their song for her. Like, it's
yeah.
really tender to me.
Yeah, I mean, we see that detail show up again, right? In the first story that you shared of this cute mama who is holding her baby girl in her arms, knowing that it's goodbye or has been goodbye, whichever way it worked out. And here she is singing "You Are My Sunshine." And then husband just happens to pick the
Yeah,
one
it's
with
so
the
pretty.
sunshine, right? And there's that significant, like, I think that there's that moment where God knows you.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's so fun that you have been an instrument. Like you said, all the glory goes to him. It's not you doing the
No, it's
work,
not
it's
me.
you allowing him to live through you. But to be an instrument in his work, what a fun job.
It is the best. It is. And I don't have these every day, but I have some pretty sweet experiences. I had a phone call. Should I tell that one? I don't know. I had a phone call one day from a best friend that her best friend had just gotten the bad news that her cancer was back, and it wasn't going away, and it was bad. And
I have pictures for this one, right?
right, well, don't show it till,
Okay,
because
I
it's
won't show him yet.
like only one. There's just one, I think. Yeah. So
Okay,
anyway,
okay.
so I was booked, and all she said when she called is she wants pictures from you. She wants you to take her pictures. And she's like, she has 5 kids. She's not going to make it. She was obviously crying. I was crying because one of my very best friends passed of cancer, having 5 children as well. So it was very tender to my heart. And anyway, she's she said she's going to call you. And while I'm talking to her, my phone is beeping. And when I hung up, I said, of course, I'll make it happen. So as I hung up and I got into my phone, it was the mom calling and saying, I need to schedule an appointment with you for family pictures. So I called her, and I was telling you, I was working 2 jobs, and I was slammed that week. I had pictures every day but one day, which was insane. because I worked another job. I was just not sleeping. So anyway, I was like, I had Thursday. So I said, oh, I can do Thursday. And if her friend hadn't got to me first, I probably would have said, I'm booked this week. Like I need one day to edit, right?
Right.
Anyway, so but I said, yeah, Thursday's great. And she's like, well, I probably will be having a procedure that day. And then she's like, actually, I have cancer. And I said, oh, well, I have Monday or Tuesday. And I didn't. I just thought this, I just said it out, it came. So I was like, okay. She's like, that would be great. And I hung up and I thought, oh, great. Now I'm going to have to tell this cute little senior that I gave her spot up. And she had an appointment to get her hair done. She had all the things, that seniors do before their shoots. And anyway, I called, and that senior girl was the most Christ-like, and her mom. I mean, they were like, no problem. No problem. Will you fit us in when you can? And you just take care of that mama. You just take care of that mama. And so I was so relieved. And so the day of the shoot, I hit my knees and I specifically prayed for that family to have a beautiful memory of this day. I wanted them to, I just wanted them to have this be a beautiful memory and a really good day for their family. I'm confident in getting good pictures, so I wasn't worried about that. But I wanted them, because 5 kids, sometimes can be crazy, right? And I wanted them to just have this most beautiful memory. And we had this shoot. It was just amazing. And I took some pictures of her by herself. That was probably the only time the tears were really, I was so blessed that I didn't just sob, because you can tell I'm kind of a crybaby. But it was when her husband said, I think we need some by yourself. And we both knew why. And that was really tender. And then I had her do something that this picture will show that I actually, it's interesting how I have things that I do that all of a sudden I can use. So anyway, the day she passed, he messaged me when I went to the funeral. He kept saying almost the exact thing that I had said in my prayer, that had been the best memory, the best day that they had had for a whole year. And she didn't hurt that day. And it was just this beautiful memory, like everything. And I just love that he said basically what I had prayed for. And it's such a testimony to me that prayer is real, and that if it's worthy, there's something to bless his children, that he's there and he makes it happen. I'm sorry, I'm such a ball baby.
Yeah, no, I love this. I mean, they were in the midst of the messiest middle, right? Like they're
Yeah,
in the midst of knowing that there's
yeah,
only so much time left with this,
right,
with mom, right?
right, right.
So it's not like God came and miraculously healed her.
No,
They still had their struggle, they still had their messy middle to live through, but he granted a request that they could have a really good day, and that she could feel good, and that she could cherish that day with her family.
so when they look
So
at those
beautiful.
pictures, they're gonna, I really wanted that. I wanted them, for when they looked at those pictures, that they had those beautiful memories, not like, oh, mom was so sick, um,
Yeah.
sick, that they could just feel happy when they looked at the pictures. So I think that, and then I didn't really think about, and I'm not sure how many years went by, but I got a phone call to do her daughter's senior pictures. And when I was out there, I had the daughter look up and went home. And in my mind, I thought, I remember taking a picture of her mom looking down. And I put them together, and it's one of my very favorite pictures of this kind of thing. And I've done
It
a
is
lot.
definitely divine. So let me just get it up
Yeah.
on the screen for everybody to see, because it is so delicious. I'm going to make it go all the way. I just think you have been given such an incredible gift to bring heaven and earth together.
Yeah, this was, it was very super tender to me. One of my favorites for sure. So,
And once again, like not something that you orchestrated or not something that you could have created on your own, but hey,
right.
I'm just doing my thing and I'm going about my life and I'm taking these really beautiful pictures. And I don't know why we're taking a picture of her looking down, but that's what I felt inspired to do, right? And then not ever thinking that you would even have a photo shoot with the daughter,
Yeah.
but then that happening and you being like, I don't know, how many pictures do you have on your computer that you could look through? Right? But being brought to your
A lot.
remembrance that, hey, there's this
Yeah.
amazing photo of her mom. And
Yeah. Yeah. Such a sweet little miracle for sure. Yeah.
yeah,
I
I
don't
think there's
even,
a few others that are
I,
similar where you've brought heaven to earth. Let's see
yeah,
what the next one is.
I don't even remember. Oh, yeah. This was a really tender shoot as well. This sweet mama had breast cancer. She was 27 and was stage 4. And so her mom did this, asked me to do this photo shoot with her daughter and her granddaughter. And I thought of this because it's kind of interesting. My little When my youngest was 8, she wrote me a poem for Mother's Day, and she was a very deep thinker. She still is, and she had put, "When I get old, so it is told, the heart that I love may be up above." And I thought, who at age 8 thinks about their mom being in heaven? But anyway,
Yeah.
but I just thought, oh, so I just had them pretend, and they didn't know what I was gonna do, but I just did this little cloud heart, and I did a bunch of other pictures of her. And then just this last year, her grandma had me do some pictures of the little girl, and you can go to the next one because it's just amazing how pictures that I have taken, I'm able to use in future pictures that are so meaningful and beautiful. And I love this so much. I had this in my head. That's why I had her close her eyes. I just, I don't know. It just speaks to me. It tells a story. Anyway, yeah, it's pretty tender.
Yeah. Such an incredible gift for, I mean, how old that little girl must have been. She must not have been super old when mom passed away. She looked pretty
No,
young.
yeah, she was very young. Yeah, yeah,
So what a gift and a treasure this piece is for them.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I think that we're
Let's
okay. Go ahead.
Oh no, go
Let
ahead.
was there any more? I can't
There
remember.
are a couple more. There are a couple more.
Oh, yeah. This I just thought of going down the road one day. I was thinking, I don't know what made me think of it, but I thought I guess I was thinking about how when we're having struggles or someone's passed, how he's got us, he's holding us. And this particular one is a sister missionary, but I've done a lot of people that have passed away, and I've done people that are going through hard times. People have had me do, yeah, all sorts of things with this because it's just kind of meaningful for sure. I
Yeah,
think.
just that reminder, right?
Yeah, that he's got us. He's holding us. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a sweet family that actually just lost their son and like I stopped by their house just to say hello and you can tell that they're still like trying to wake up from the nightmare, you know,
Yeah.
and that grief will have its process and I can just imagine what and they have actually they have images, they have someone in the family who put together it's actually really another cool image, but they've taken all these little pictures of him throughout his life and they've created this it's like collage, right? It's like all these little tiny pictures
Uh-huh.
and the savior is in the middle of it and it's really cool as well, but I just think
Oh,
these
that's sweet.
images that remind us that Christ does have us no matter how messy the middle looks.
Right.
um he's there and he's got us and he's the glue that holds it all together,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think this is the last one. And
Wow.
I don't know if I'll be
This
able to
might,
remember exactly how you said it, but you said, when I
um,
find myself suffering, I create.
or I see others suffering too. Like, because my heart, when I see other people hurting, it's hard. Anyway, there's just been a lot going on in Utah this last. I just barely created this one. And I was just feeling my heart breaking because I have a dear friend who was just diagnosed with cancer, and my heart is completely broken over that. And then, the tragedy in Enoch, and then there was a tragedy in the neighboring county that, we love so many people over there. And so my heart was just breaking for me, for not just me, but for everyone. And because my heart breaks when other people's hearts are breaking. Anyway, and I just pulled in a picture of some red rock that I had done and just manipulated it, and thought the only way that you can, I'm not a scriptorian and I don't understand everything, but I have faith that Jesus Christ is the way to healing our broken hearts. And I think if we stand together and we bear one another's burdens, and we mourn with those who mourn, and do what he would do, that's what we need to be doing, and he'll heal us. And he sees us, and he sees our heavy hearts, and he cares. So anyway, that's just kind of where that photo came from.
Well, I love this photo, and I don't think I have shared with you. Hearts have a lot of significance in my world. Um,
Oh,
yeah. It all started, I don't know, there's some post somewhere, or there's an episode that shares this story, but it all started on a really imperfectly perfect Sunday when it was supposed to be the primary program, and my child was absolutely certain that she would not be participating in the traditional way. Because getting up in front of that whole crowd of people that she didn't know because we had just moved was not going to be her thing. It was not going to happen. And I was fine with that. I am a recovering perfectionist, but had learned how to let go of my expectations at that point in time, and um, ended up having my own little VIP primary program with her. We ended up sitting up front, just her and I, because she wanted to be able to see the kids. She wanted to participate in her way. And she did. She stood up for every little song and she sang her little heart out. She just wanted to do it in her own safe space. And at one point, she looked down at her skirt. She had like this little taffeta skirt on, and there was a rip in the skirt, and it was in the perfect shape of a heart. And
oh,
she said, "Look, Mom, it's a heart." And I just looked at her and I said, "And that is a love note from God. And God wants you to know that He is proud of you today, and that He loves you, and that He cherishes you." And so ever since then, we just are always on the hunt for hearts. I find them everywhere I go. I find them in the sky. I find them in the clouds. I find them in the blue. I find them. We just spent a month in Mexico, and I bet I have hundreds of photos of her. I just can find them everywhere. And it just is a reminder to me of the abundance of God's love. And so, um, I just think that sometimes we don't, like, this picture obviously has significance and a lot of meaning to you, and it's something that you created in the midst of a lot of suffering in our world. And then it goes out into the world and it has significance for me, right? Totally different meaning and totally different significance, but nonetheless, it's another little love note from God to me saying, I love you and I've got you and I'm aware and my love is abundant. Even though the current experience feels really, really messy at times.
yeah. Well, I hope, my hope is that something that I might create might touch somebody. the one that you saw that you reached out for to me for, I realize how people need hope. And there are so many people that have lost babies, so many. And it's never, I don't think it ever probably goes away. I can't imagine. But I do know that I love to create, but I do know that we're all here to create. I feel like we're all creators. And I think when we're sincerely wanting to put beauty in the world, that he'll help us do that.
Absolutely. It's interesting. I feel the pull to create in ways that I have never considered creating before. I fell in love with Mexico and all of the art and the bright colors. And so I'm excited to see what my journey is in a more creative, intentionally creative process, right? I also love, I think there are so many people who create through music. I think there's a
Oh
hundred
yeah.
million ways to
Oh,
create.
that's what I'm saying. Everybody creates. I
Yeah.
mean, I can't really, when you really think of every job, that there's some kind of creation in everything that we do. I feel like, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but you know, as yeah, anyway.
I couldn't agree more. I totally and absolutely agree. Whether we are conscious of it or not, we are all creators. I think it's part of who God created us to be, and it's how we become more like God is through creation. And I love that. So
Thanks.
thank you so much for joining me today, for sharing your heart, your story, and your testament of the goodness of God, especially in the midst of the very messy middle. I'm so excited to share your stories and know that hearts will continue to be touched.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. My friend, that's a wrap for today. If you would like to check out more of Faun's incredible creations, she can be found by searching for Faund, Faund, images on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. You can also find links to her pages in the show notes. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the show. And if you loved today's episode, please help me share the grand adventures of trusting divinity. Perhaps a friend, a family member, or a neighbor came to mind as you listened to these amazing stories that remind us God knows right where we are, especially in our messy middles. Please feel free to pass along today's episode and help lift another's heart. As for next week, who knows what God has in store, but I am certain it will be delicious.